NATO leaders commit to boost readiness as the Ukraine war rages on. In Ukraine, Russia's stepped-up bombing campaign spreads to Mykolaiv. In France, a verdict in the trial over the devastating 2015 terror attacks.
Prosecutors have requested a real-life sentence of 30 years for the main defendant. We'll explain what that means in the Cube.
I'm Chris Burns. Thanks for joining us. Good evening. We start in Madrid, where world leaders from the NATO alliance have officially declared Russia a direct threat to its security, unveiling a new strategic concept. The military pact has pledged unshakable support to Ukraine at the Spanish summit. It has also formalized its invitation to Sweden and Finland to join its bloc after Turkey lifted its opposition. The U.S. says it will boost military forces across Europe, including a new permanent headquarters in Poland. Well, let's go live to our correspondent now, Effie Kutsakosta, who's there in Madrid, who's at the summit. Effie, first of all, there have been a lot of commitments made. We're going to hear shortly from Jens Stoltenberg, the Secretary General, in a press conference. But let's hear it from you. So far, there have been a number of commitments. Could you talk about a couple?
Yeah, sure, Chris. Of course, today was a big day for the alliance as NATO members adopted their strategic concept for the next decade. And of course, as you said, the most significant part is that they recognize Russia as the most significant and direct threat. But they also set the security challenges set by China for the first time in history. Of course, the invitation to Sweden and Finland is important, or of course, also for the Baltic states. But they also committed to strengthen their presence and their posture to the eastern flank of the alliance, which means that they are going to increase the battle groups significantly over the coming years. They don't give a specific timeline, but as a political and symbolic commitment is huge what they actually announced. We don't expect to see something publicly because, of course, there are classified documents, but of course we can understand how significant it is for them to put not permanent forces, but pre-assigned forces that are ready to act whenever and if needed. Of course, it's important to see that the whole attention is shifted to the east of the alliance, especially in Europe.
Right, and just, that really follows to your conversation with the Lithuanian foreign minister, your conversation about those, direction of forces. What is the upshot of your talk with the foreign minister?
Actually, the Lithuanian foreign minister had many reasons to be happy today because, of course, of the formal invitation of Finland and Sweden into the alliance, as this is going to strengthen the Baltic side of the alliance, which means that, of course, this expansion from this side is going to strengthen and give a boost to the military superiority of this region, the Baltic Sea. But of course there are a lot of things there as the alliance is going to direct its forces, many forces, many battalions also to Lithuania. Germany is going to put many forces, pre-assigned forces, especially for Lithuania. And it's important to say this because, of course, Kaliningrad, this small region, Russian region between Lithuania and Russia, is now on the spot because, of course, of the hostile rhetoric of Russia. But the Lithuanian foreign minister said that the fear is not the right way to see this war and this situation. But let's see what he had to say to us.
Currently, just about 0.7% of traffic is being stopped that was going through the territory of Lithuania. So I don't think that it merits a very big reason to have a standoff, any kind of standoff. We are in consultation with the European Commission to look into the ways whether there is a way how to offer something, some measures to Russian Federation that would answer certain worries. But then again, there are other ways how they can transport materials or whatever they need to Kaliningrad, and as far as I know, they are quite efficiently using them as well.
So, apart
from this, we also discussed Yeah, we also discussed, Chris, about the differences among the members of the alliance regarding the end of the war. What is an end of the war? Of course, we heard Stoltenberg earlier, the Secretary General of NATO, saying that the alliance is ready to help Ukraine as long as it takes. What this means, according to the Lithuanian Foreign Minister, this end may come quite late. This war can go longer than expected. I don't know what is expected or what it means. But what he said is actually that this is what Ukraine will say, and Ukraine will tell the other allies, NATO alliance, when this end of the war will come and how.
So as long as it takes, we should be hearing more about this within the hour, actually, for this press conference with Jens Stoltenberg. And we'll be hearing more from you as well. Thank you very much, Effie. We'll get back to you later. Turning to Ukraine itself, a Russian missile has hit a block of flats in Mykolaiv, killing at least 4 people and injuring 5. The city is a major port in the south of Ukraine, not far from the front lines. Taking it would be key to Moscow's aim of cutting off Ukraine from its Black Sea coast and could threaten Odessa, which is further to the west. Earlier, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky addressed NATO leaders online, saying this attack was another example of Russia's intent to destroy Ukrainian cities.
Russia's tactics are very simple. They destroy everything: apartment buildings, shopping malls, schools and hospitals. Since February the 24th, there have been more than 2,800 missiles, and the vast majority of them strike civilian targets. Why is it? Why bombs? Why total artillery strikes? The Russian army is doing everything to get as many people as possible to leave their cities so that there is nothing left but ruins.
And meanwhile, Russian President Vladimir Putin has made his first foreign trip since the invasion of Ukraine. He visited Tajikistan, a close Russian ally, before flying to Turkmenistan for a summit of countries bordering the Caspian Sea. Earlier, Moscow described the expected expansion of NATO as being a, quote, destabilizing factor in international affairs. Well, let's get more on Russia's reaction to the NATO summit now and speak to our correspondent Galina Polonskaya. Galina, NATO is expanding. The U.S. is actually putting or planning to put more forces in Eastern Europe and setting up a permanent headquarters in Poland even. How is this making, what's the reaction in Russia? Are they furious?
Hello, well, Russia indeed has called NATO's expansion deal destabilizing. Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov said that NATO summit served as a proof that alliance wants to contain Russia. He said that calling Russia the biggest threat has nothing to do with real life, and that it is the alliance that poses a threat to Russia. So he said that it was a purely destabilizing factor in the international affairs. And there was another quite strong comment coming from the deputy head of Russia's Federation Council, is the upper house of Russian Parliament, Konstantin Kosachev, said that it was another demonstrative gesture of the West, and that the absorption of more and more new states into NATO, the decision to expand the military presence at Russia's borders, these are, as he said, the most weighty arguments in favor of Russia's military operation in Ukraine.
And now, what about Turkey? You know, closing ranks again with the rest of its NATO partners, not standing in the way anymore of Sweden and Finland joining eventually the NATO alliance. What kind of reaction from Russia on that? Because President Erdogan of Turkey had been sort of fashioning himself as a middleman, perhaps, a go-between. Does he still have Putin's ear?
Well, I have seen just some Russian media saying that it will not be possible for Turkey to sit on 2 chairs anymore, that what has happened is a signal for Russia. But no one in Russia officially is pointing a finger at Turkey at this point. We know that Turkey has been saying that it is not good to burn bridges with Russia. It did not join the sanctions against Russia. It is mediating the grain talks. And right now what is happening is that Turkey has dropped its objections, and we will see Sweden and Finland joining NATO. And that happened after long talks of President of Turkey Erdogan with the leaders of those two countries. So let's see what the reaction of the Kremlin will be. For now, Russia says that it is all predictable and that it justifies the war in Ukraine.
Okay, now so far what we've heard from the NATO alliance about boosting readiness, boosting forces, stationing forces more permanently in Eastern Europe, what is Moscow's response to this beyond a lot of the huffing and puffing from politicians in Moscow?
Well, the response is yet to come, the real concrete response, if there will be any. But speaking about those warnings coming from Moscow, we have heard recently warnings from a very close ally of Vladimir Putin, the ex-president of Russia, Dmitry Medvedev, who spoke to Russian media and said that Russia would strengthen its borders and would be ready for retaliatory steps, including the possibility of installing hypersonic missiles on the new borders with the new NATO member countries. So those could be some concrete steps. He also said that this NATO policy is a threat that could bring to the Third World War. That's what we have heard from him yesterday. Let's see what the exact steps from Moscow will be for now.
Yeah, wait and see. All right, Galina, thank you very much in Moscow. Thank you. Coming up next, after 10 months of proceedings, a verdict in the terror trial over the 2015 Paris attacks that killed 130 people. Stay with us. Welcome back to Euronews Tonight. A French court is expected to hand down its verdicts against 20 men accused of committing the November 2015 terror attacks in Paris. The 10-month trial reopened the scars of modern France's worst peacetime atrocity when 130 people were killed in a night of carnage. A team of Islamic State group of jihadists attacked the National Sports Stadium, bars, and the Bataclan concert hall. All the attackers were killed except key suspect Salah Abdeslam, who was captured 4 months later. 6 others were accused of offering logistical support or plotting other attacks and were tried in absentia. And we'd like to get more on this, about the mood there as we await the verdict, and would like to talk to Héloïse Aurvois, who is there with us. Héloïse, what is the feeling on the ground as people are awaiting this verdict? A lot of family victims are there, aren't they?
Yes, well, we are still waiting for a verdict here in Paris after a lengthy trial. Out of the 20 alleged terrorists, 11 are facing a life sentence, which is extremely rare here in France. Actually, it would only be the 5th time that this sentence is given, which shows the gravity of the situation that we can feel on the ground today in Paris. There are many people that have gathered here, which makes sense, as there were over 2,000 plaintiffs that took part in this extraordinary trial. There are also some ordinary Parisians that have come here to wait for the verdict. Actually, just minutes ago, I was speaking with a man who told me that as an ordinary Parisian, he was lucky not to have been affected by the attacks, but as someone who loves to go out to enjoy concerts, to go to a cafe as well, he was waiting for the verdict in hope to get a sense of justice out of all of this. And actually, this really echoes the words of the father of one of the 130 victims, who said during the trial that the best answer to barbaric terrorism is democracy and justice. And that is what we can feel on the ground here today in Paris.
Thank you very much, Héloïse. Yeah, we'll be watching for the verdict later this evening. Thank you very much. We'll be back to you. Now, for victims' families and survivors of the Paris terror attacks, the 10-month trial has been an excruciating process in their quest for justice and closure. And some French citizens have raised questions about what the defendants' sentences could mean. Our team in the Cube has been investigating.
Emotion around the trial into the deadliest peacetime attacks in French history is understandably high. And that's sometimes where we can see confusion and online misinformation. Salah Abdeslam is the last surviving member of the terrorist cell believed to have carried out these attacks in Paris. If found guilty, prosecutors have asked that he be handed a real-life prison sentence with a maximum term of 30 years. And this has led to some disdain. Some people online questioning whether, after 30 years, he might be released. But what is the truth? Well, my colleague Sofia Hadsenkova in the Cube has been taking a closer look at this. Sofia, what exactly is a real-life term?
Well, Matthew, the prosecution has requested this rare, incompressible life sentence against Salah Abdeslam for this immense seriousness of his actions, as well as the lack of remorse he has shown during the trial. This is the strictest life sentence in the French judicial system and has only been handed down 4 times before in modern French history. But such a penalty makes the reduction of the time served in prison very, very slim. So during the first 30 years of the sentence, so as we can see in this French government website, the convicted person cannot ask for parole or conditional release. But it's true that after these 30 years, the convict can ask for a modification. But after this time period, it is still not easy and definitely not automatic, Matthew.
So how could somebody be released after a lifetime of 30 years then?
Well, they have to fulfill these 3 criteria. The first one is they must show serious signs of social integration. The second is they must undergo a psychiatric evaluation that shows that they're not a danger to society. And the third is that the judge must ask the opinions of the victims before that convict is released. But due to the seriousness of the Paris attacks, as well as all the emotion that surrounds the trial, it is highly unlikely that Salah Abdeslam will be released anytime after those 30 years, Matthew.
Indeed, thank you, Sophia. So this is the first time, Chris, that an incompressible life sentence has been handed down in France for a terrorist crime. If convicted, though, it does not automatically mean that the defendant will be released after 30 years.
Matthew, Sophia, thank you very much over there in the Cube. Thank you. Just as Europe's summer holidays kick off, some of you have been experiencing a lot of travel disruptions. We've seen a lot of that on TV. Many of you have tried to receive compensation for canceled flights. Or what about rescheduling journeys that doesn't work with your plans? We've seen plenty of that, and Pedro Sacadura has more on this. He's been finding out if airlines are really being clear about your rights.
Strikes, slowdowns, and staff shortages are turning Europe's air travel into a summer hell. Belgian Daniel Rotier is among its victims. His trip to Verona earlier this month became a nightmare when, he says, his inbound flight was cancelled, with no explanation.
On the 7th of June, we learnt by email that our flight on the 8th of June was cancelled. The only solution proposed was to try to get a seat on the plane leaving on the 10th of June, which was 2 days later. We asked our Airbnb host if we could stay longer. After some trouble, we managed to stay longer, although not for the same price. It was a Ryanair flight. We didn't have any explanation from them. We tried to contact them by mail, telephone, but with no answer.
Daniel is now claiming compensation for extra costs, unlike many people do. Under EU rules, if your flight is cancelled, the airline must give you a refund or reschedule the flight, even if it takes getting a different airline. You are also entitled to extra compensation and accommodation expenses, should you incur. But consumer organizations say airlines often leave passengers in the dark about their rights.
If you are in an extraordinary circumstances cases, so if you have a storm or if you have a strikes from the airport staff, for instance, which is an extraordinary circumstances, you don't have the right to compensation. In other situations, you have the right to compensation. The amount of this compensation varies depending on the distance of your flights.
Ryanair, however, claims it informs all its passengers of their rights. But consumer organizations argue this, and the majority of airlines fail to make it clear. The problem is likely to worsen as global carriers are cancelling thousands of flights ahead of summer. Passengers are advised to keep all their invoices and claim back their rights, whatever it takes. Pedro Sacadura, Euronews, Brussels.
Coming up, as you think about your road trip during the summer, here are some road trips with a purpose, e-vehicles connecting Europe, and what the future of mobility could look like. Stay with us and find out. So welcome back to Euronews Tonight. You might not know this, but there's an EU proposal to end combustion engine sales by 2035. That could spell the end of travel as we know it. But many people remain unsure of just how practical electric vehicles really are. Well, 15 electric cars from across Europe have made the trip to Lyon in France in a bid to test their capability and charging infrastructure throughout the continent. It's a big question for a lot of people. Well, Clémence Waller tells us more.
Driving to Lyon from up to 2,500 kilometers away using only electric vehicles. That's the goal of the Connecting Europe Days event held in the southern French city. 15 electric cars came together after driving from different points across Europe using chargers co-funded by the European Union.
We help to coordinate many projects across Europe that all have the ambition to decarbonize transport and build a charging station for electrical vehicles that will help us to get off of fossil fuels.
Within the projects that are showcased in the event, there are about 1,000 locations already co-financed by the European Union through CEF transport, each location having between 1 to 6 chargers installed.
The aim is to showcase the capacity of current electric vehicles and charging infrastructures to perform long journeys across Europe. The teams drove different car models with distances ranging from 250 to over 500 kilometers. Although the journeys were long, their participants agreed on the potential of electric transport.
We came to Lyon from Bucharest, Romania, so we had one of the longest trips of all the teams. It was about 2,500 kilometers. We made this trip in 3 days.
We came from Hungary and it took for us 2 days, and altogether it was 1,500 kilometers. And I have to admit that the whole charging experience and the whole journey was quite seamless, and it was quite relaxing to drive a fully electric car from actually Budapest to Lyon.
Connecting Europe Days will bring together public representatives and industry leaders until the 30th of June to discuss sustainable mobility. Clémence Waller, Euronews.
All right, so you really can do a road trip with an e-vehicle. That's all for now on Euronews Tonight. I'm Chris Burns. Thanks so much for watching. See you later.